Welcome to another coding tutorial, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to visualize your sleep patterns as a glowing set of beautiful rings. First, let's look at the data. So what I have here is my sleeping patterns based on my sleeping time and my waking time for the past month, from June 10th until July 9th. And as you can see here, we have a total of 3 columns. The first one is the date, the second is the sleep time, and then the third is the wake time. As you can see here, now that we have the sleep data, what we need to do is we just need to download it as a CSV file. What you want to do is you want to come to this arrow here and you want to upload the file. So you just need to click this plus sign, upload file, and now you just need to drag and drop your file in here. All right, so first let's declare the variable table, and then we're gonna use the function called preload to preload this data onto the sketch. So function preload, and we have used preload to load images and some MP3 files, and we can do that as well for the CSV file. So we're gonna set table to be equals to load table. And then we're going to put in a total of 3 arguments. The first one is the name of the file. And in my case, it is called sleeptracker.csv. Sleeptracker.csv. The second one is we're going to put CSV to tell it what kind of file it is. And then the third one, I'm going to put in header, telling it that the first row is a header. So it can ignore that row. All right. Let's click run to make sure that it's loaded properly, and it did. All right, so next what we're going to do is that we're going to go to a documentation page for p5.table, and underneath here, you can see that there are a bunch of parameters and fields that we can use, and also methods. So columns and rows, add row, remove row, get rows. So I'm going to show you a few ways that we can extract the data. So first, how about we do get rows here, which gets our rows from the table. It returns an array of p5.table rows. So let's start with that one. So how about we do print table.getRows. And as you can see here, the length of the array is 30. And each of the locations inside this array is an object, right? With 3 sets of information: the date, the sleep time, and the wake time, which is exactly what is on the spreadsheet. So now I want to just get one of these information here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back here. We're gonna use this getRow method here. It's going to return a reference to a specified p5.table row, and how we're going to do it is we're going to basically copy and paste this. Let's see what it does. So I'm going to comment this out, and then here basically we're going to declare this variable called row, set it equals to table.getRow, and this is the location of the index basically of which of these objects we want to get. So how about actually I want to put in as 0, so the first index. So inside here, this for loop basically is going to print out information based on that object itself. So we're going to go through from c equals to 0 to c less than the column count, right? Which for us, there are a total of 3. So it's the date, the sleep time, and then the wake time. So let's just try that. Run. You have used p5 reserve function row, so we can change the name row here. How about we do data? And I'm going to delete this comment line out. Okay, let's click run again. And you can see that it's printed out the information inside the object, right? So June 10th, the time, the sleep time, and the wake time. All right, so this is how we're going to get each of the object. And then now what we want to do is that we're going to put each of these pieces of information inside its own variable. I'm going to come up here and then I'm going to set, how about we set, first we set data as a variable, and then we're going to set date, sleep time, and wake time. And then we're going to set date to be equals to, so as you can see here, data.getString, and then you can put in the index number, right? From 0 to here it is 2. But what we can do also is that if you go back to the documentation page here, get string, you can specify the row or the column number, but you can also do it by its ID, and the ID is actually the header's name. So date, sleep time, and wake time as a string. So actually that's what I'm going to do. So let me show you. So we can do date to be equals to data dot get string, and then we can put in date. And we're going to do the same for sleep time. And I put the spacing between it because that's the way that I name my header. So you can change this based on whatever you name your header, right? And the last one is going to be wake time. And now what I want to do is I want to print out date, sleep time, and wake time, just to make sure that we have all the information inside the variables. All right, great. So one more thing that I want to show you is that I want to show you what type of data sleep time and wake time and also date is, but we can just do, yeah, we can do type of, to get the type of the information here. So you can see that all of them are strings, but actually for sleep time and wake time, how we're going to use it is that we're going to turn the sleep time and the wake time into a column index. So first we want to also change it from the type string to the type integer. So I'm going to write a new function called time to column index, and the parameter is going to be the time string, which are these, and then we're going to set a variable called time, and time is going to be, first it's going to be time string dot split, and this allows us to split the string based on whatever is in here, and we want to split it by this colon here, right? Because why? I want the hour and then the minute to be separated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now print time. Oh wait, we need to call it too. So let's do time to column index, and I'm going to put in sleep time as the argument. All right, and then let's also do no loop, so it only does this once. Okay, so the sleep time is 23:49, right? So 11 p.m. and 49 minutes. Yeah. So now we get two sets of string, 23 and 49. So first what I want to do is that I want to convert this to an integer. Actually, first I want to put it inside two variables, hour and minute. So let's do h to be equals to time of 0, right? And then I want to turn it into an integer. And then now minute is going to be the same thing, but it's going to be time of index 1. And now what I want to print is that I want to print H, M, and I also want to show you that the type of H and M now is a number, an integer, right? So 23 and 49, great. Now, we want to turn this into a column index, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to set another variables. We need to get the total number of minutes first. So how I'm gonna do this is that I want to set the time to visualize between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. because that is the min and the max of the time that I have been sleeping in the past month. And then instead of doing it for every single minute, because that's gonna be way too much, we're gonna split it in the time increment of 10 minutes. So first what we're gonna do is we're gonna set a variable called total minutes. And we're going to calculate it based on the number of hours times 60, right? There are a total of 60 minutes per hour and then plus M. But because, as I just mentioned, we're gonna do it based on the minimum time or the starting time of 10 p.m., we also want to calculate the base minutes, and that's gonna be 22 times 60, right? 22 is 10 p.m. And then because if the wake time is in the time that is less than 22, right? We know that it is the wake time. So we need to write a conditional statement that says if total minutes is less than base minutes, meaning that it is the morning basically. What we want to do is we want to actually add whatever total minutes is to 24 times 60 because we always want the total minutes to be more than the base minutes, and that is because we're going to find how much time has passed, and this way we're going to be able to calculate the column. So time passed is going to be equals to total minutes minus base minutes, and then this is going to give us the total minutes, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to get the column index based on time passed divided by 10, right? And this could give us a floating number. So we also want to use floor to get an index because we want, an integer because an index has to be an integer. So we're going to return column index, but before that, we also want to check our work to make sure that this is actually correct. So let's print call index, and we're going to put in, sleep time. All right, so in here, sleep time is 23:49, right? Let's just click run. Right, so it returns 10, right? Which is correct because it's correct. So 50, okay, actually easier if we do this to just get a time. So if we do 10 o'clock, it is 0. If we do 10:10, it's 1. 10:14, it's still 1. So if we do 10:16, it is still 1. Floor. If we do round, then it would round up. So I guess you can choose, right? So 15, this would round up. So I guess for floor, everything is rounded down. Maybe we do round instead of floor then. Okay, and so if we do sleep time, which was this, then we get an index of 11. Let's do wake time, and also let's print what wake time is. And Why does it, oh, we don't need this anymore. Oh, wake time is 7:28. And total minutes is not defined. I had a small typo here. So wake time should work now. All right, so 57. So it was from 10 to 57. Okay, so what we want to do next is that we want to visualize this one ring, and then we'll put it inside a class. So let's start by just visualize one ring. So I'm going to delete this, and then also here, what we're gonna do is, how about we create a variable, let's call it ring. No, actually, we don't need this yet. We can just, we have all this information here. And as I mentioned earlier, right, we want to visualize this between what? 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. in a 10-minute increment, and that is a total of 66 rings because it's 11 hours times 6. So I'm going to call this num. Let's do that. We can change it later, but it's going to be 66, and this is basically what? 11 hours times 6 10-minute increment, right? Oh, how about we call it time increment? All right. So now what we need to do is we're going to write a for loop that goes from I equals 0 to I less than time increment I plus plus, and we're going to set a few variables. Angle is going to be, so one revolution of a circle is 2 pi divided by time increment and then multiply by I. So basically we're going to be drawing a set of 66 circles around a circumference of a circle. So we need to use trigonometry, and the equation is x equals to r times cosine of angle, and then y to be equals to r times sine of angle. And this basically, this calculation gets us the spacing between each of the rings, and then when we multiply it by I, which ranges from 0 to time inc, or 66 minus 1, we basically get the location of each of the rings. And now what we need is, we also need to set r. How about we just set it to 100? We can change that later. And then now we're going to draw an ellipse, or a set of ellipses from x and y for the size of, let's set the size now, why not? Size, let's do 10. All right, let's click run. Okay, and so right now, because of this equation here, the origin point is at the top left corner of the canvas. So what we also want to do is we want to move it out by cx and cy, which I'm going to set as the middle of the canvas. So cx will be equals to width divided by 2, and then cy will be height divided by 2. And then if I click run now, it is now in the middle of the canvas. And how we're going to use the data that we just calculated here, right? Sleep time and wake time, is that we're going to be filling up these circles based on the time that we sleep, or I slept. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to use a conditional statement that says, if I, right, this is basically the column index, or the index of these circles, right, is more than or equals to sleep column. Oh, we also need to calculate that, right? We actually never did that. So let's do let sleep call and wake call, right? So sleep call is basically what? This function here, right? And then the argument is sleep time. And then same thing, but different for wake call. All right. And then now, so if this index is greater or equals to sleep call, and also I is less than or equals to wake call, then what we're gonna do is, how about we just fill it red? Otherwise, else, we fill it white. All right, so it's 11 and 57. Now it's 11 because we use round instead of floor. And as you can see here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So 11 starts here. That means that the starting point of the index is this point here, where the x horizontal line is. But you can keep it like this, but what I want to do is that I actually want to move it here by pi for aesthetics reason. So what we need to do is that we basically just add everything by pi. And now it's moved. Okay, and we don't need to print these anymore. Okay, so now before we move forward, how about we just put all of this inside a class, and then we can create a total of 30 rings after that. Let's come to this arrow here, click the plus sign, click create file. Let's call this ring.js, and then let's go to index.html file first and make sure that you reference this file here by copy and paste this line of code, and then change the name from sketch.js to ring.js. And now we integrated this into our sketch. So let's go to ring.js. Now we're going to start with the word class. We're going to call it ring, and then we're going to start with the constructor function. Okay, let's go back to sketch, and what we need in here is basically we need, okay, so we need date, sleep, and time. So this dot date is going to be equals to date. We're going to set these as parameters. Sleep time, and then this dot wake time be equals to wake time. We just put it inside here, date, sleep time, and wake time. And then how about we create a method called display, but actually we need a few more things inside the constructor function. So let's go back here. Basically, yeah, we need all of these, right? So actually this set here, I'm gonna use it when we actually put in the arguments or the parameters, but I want to calculate this inside the class. So this dot sleep call will be equals to time dot index dot this dot sleep time. Same here. And actually I just realized that because we're setting it as this, we don't actually need to use a for loop anymore, right? Because the for loop basically goes through the number of columns, but we actually set it based on the name of the ID, right? Now we're gonna put all of this inside the display method actually. All right, so in here, we need to make sure that we put in, actually, I'm going to also set radius as a parameter. So let's do that as the fourth parameter here. So yeah, why don't we put it after? This dot r will be equals to r. And then for here, this dot r. So time inc is a global variable, so we can just keep as is. This would be this dot size is also a global variable. All right, I think we're ready to create one ring object. So let's go back. So we can delete this table data. Okay, I think these are all good. So let's create a variable called ring, and then ring is going to be a new ring object, right? And we want to put in date, sleep time, wake time, and how about we set R here equals to 100. And then now inside draw, we just need to call the display method, and we should get the exact same thing. Nice. Okay, next, let's create a set of 30 rings. And 30 basically is this number here, right? Table.getRows. So how about we set num to be equals to this. So num is, let's just print num to make sure that it is the right number that we want. Oops. Why don't we see it? Print num. Cannot read undefined get rows. Oh, it's dot length. Print num again. 30. Great. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to use a for loop. Let's go from I equals 0 to I less than num, right? Which is 30. There are a total of 30 rings that we're going to create. And we want to put all of this inside here. And actually, we don't need this as a global variable here. Yeah, all of these can be local now. So data is going to be table.getRow of index I, and then we have all of these, and then basically we just need to push it inside the array ring, right? Push new ring of date, sleep time, and R. And actually, instead of having R as 100 here, what I want to do is I want to set a minimum radius. So let's do minimum radius of 100 still. And how about we put it here? And then inside here, so R will be min R plus I times an increment. So let's do size so that we make sure that the circles do not overlap. We can just put R here, and then inside draw, we're going to use the same for loop here to call the display method. All right. So rings of I dot display. Rings is not defined. Rings dot push. Rings is an array. Wow. Okay, let's change the size to be smaller. Let's do 5. Okay. And then let's do the minimum radius to be 50. And how about we increase the size of the canvas to be a bit bigger at 450? Okay, hopefully you can see on the screen here. Now, you can see now that the dates, basically I sleep quite well for the past month. That's the first thing that you can see. There's some days that I might be sleeping a little bit later. Some days are a bit earlier, but overall, pretty good sleeping month. Great. So now, how about we play around with the colors a little bit? How about we set a nice color palette called palette. This is the color that I want. And then now inside the ring class, we're also going to set C as another parameter, which we're gonna set here. Actually, C will be color of C. This dot C. Okay, so inside sketch, we need to basically, what do we need to do? Set C to be equals to this palette. We can do it randomly. Why don't we start there? So we can pick a random color inside an array by just doing random.palette, just like that. Then put it as the 5th argument. Nice. Don't you think the color looks nice? Let's make, do we want it to be a bit bigger? Maybe 5.5. Okay, not bad. Now we're going to set it as no stroke. And I want the alpha value of these white ones to be 50. Okay, and that looks pretty nice already, but next I want to make it a little bit more interactive. So I want actually to set the alpha value of these color rings too, based on where my mouse is. So we're going to write a new function called update. We're going to calculate the distance between the mouse and the ring. So first we're going to create a buffer, because instead of having to have the mouse location be at the exact same location, we're going to give it a little bit of buffer, right? Let's do 5. So it's still a small buffer. And we're going to calculate, first we're going to write a for loop that goes through all of these locations, right? So I actually will be copying and pasting this just to get the location of x and y, and then we're gonna find the distance, right? And we can use a function called dist to find the distance between 2 points, and those 2 points are going to be x and y here, and then mouse x and mouse y. So mouse x, mouse y, x and y. And the conditional statement that we're going to write is if distance is less than this buffer amount here, then we're going to say that this hovered, which is going to be a Boolean variable, which we need to set, is going to be true, but it is always going to be false when we start calling this update function. And then actually I'm going to write a command called break. So basically what we want is that instead of checking each one of these inside the ring, if just one circle inside that ring is already touched by the mouse, then I want to break out of the for loop. I want to set the hover to be true already. So I also want to put in here this hover. Let's start with false. And then what are we going to do with this? So outside of this for loop here, but still inside the update function, we're going to say that if this dot hovered is true, then I want to set an alpha value of these color rings to be a certain amount, which is actually full on, right? So let's set this dot alpha val to be alpha value on, which we need to set all of these. Else, then it's going to be alpha value equals to alpha value off. And let's set this dot alpha val to be, let's start at alpha value off, and I want to set these as global variables. I'm going to actually put them here. So let alpha val on to be 255, and then alpha val off to be maybe 50. Let's do actually at 100. So the reason that I'm setting these as the separate thing is because the color mode that we're using is not RGB, so I can't just put it as the 4th argument for the alpha value, right? We need to use a different function. So what we need is we need to do this dot c dot set alpha, and then we're going to set it as the alpha value. So this dot c needs to be color, a color type, And as you can see here, it is already off a color type. So I hope that this works. Let's see. Yeah, let's click run first. All right, so it works. So right now it's off. It starts as off, right? And I have not called update yet. So let's call update inside sketch here. So all we need to do is just call update here. And then now it's not working. Let's see, why is that?
A few moments later.
What I did wrong is that inside update here, I still have no loop, which means it wasn't able to update. So run. Yay, great. So now the interactive part works. To the last piece, what I want to do is that I want to create some label to show you that when we hover on each of these rings, then it should display the time and the date that I slept. First, I want to change the size back to 5. And then now I'm going to come down here and write a function called display label. All right, and we're going to use a function called text. And text basically allows us to write things on the sketch. And it takes a total of 3 arguments. The first one is the text itself, and then the second and the third are the x and y coordinate of the bounding box. So let's say I use the label. Actually, let's create a variable called label, and it's a string called sleep tracker, and we're gonna write it here at position x and y. And how about we set x to be cx and then y to be cy, which is the middle part here, right? Oh, and we need to call display label. Okay, it's white, that's why you can't see it. So a few things that we want to change. First, I actually want to change the font. So we can change it text font, and I want to do the font mono space. And then we want to do text size, which is changing the size to be 10. You still cannot see it because it is quite small. I mean, it is black. I mean, it is white. Bear with me. All right, so we want to do no stroke. How about that? And then we want to fill it with the color black. Okay, so now you can see. And you can see also that the anchor point is at the bottom left here, which I think is fine. Now what I want to do is that I want it to actually be here, and I also want to draw a line from the middle of the canvas to the left side here. So we're going to calculate x and y location. So instead of these x and y here, we're going to actually do x to be equals to r times cosine of angle and r times sine of angle. But it is going to be off the biggest one. So first we're going to set angle to be equals to pi, right? I want it to be here. And then for r, I want it to be minimum r plus 30 because it's the 30th ring times size. I think. Let's try it. And also don't forget to move it by the origin point. Okay, yay, great. And now we're gonna use it to draw a line also. So line from x and y to cx and cy. And because it say no stroke here, we also need to change to stroke of 0. Okay, and I want the stroke weight to be a little bit thinner. All right, and so I also want this sleep tracker thing to be a little bit above the line. One last thing, instead of doing min r, which is where the outest circle is, right? I also want to multiply it by, let's do maybe 0.75. So it's a little bit inside. Now what I want to do is that I want to be able to display the information of the date and the time based on the ring that I hover instead of displaying sleep tracker. We're going to start with hovered ring equals to null, and we're going to go through all the rings. So let I equals 0, so I less than num, I plus plus, and then we're going to check if rings of I dot hovered is true. If, right? Then we want to set hovered ring to be that particular ring. And then we just want to break, right? We don't want to keep checking. So this has to be equals to equals, or we can get rid of this altogether. And we're going to set label first as an empty string. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Then if hovered ring is not null, then we're going to set label to be equals to hovered ring dot date plus hover ring dot sleep time plus hover ring dot wake time. Else then label will be equals to sleep tracker, right? All right, and then now we just need some spacing. So we're gonna add, how about we add a comma in between here, and then in between sleep time and wake time, we're gonna put in 2. Let's see if this looks nice. Okay. June 10th, I slept from 11:49 to 7:28. And this day I didn't sleep too much. 1:41 a.m. Well, I did get up at 8. So not bad. Last thing, let's change the color of the background. Let's make it a little bit lighter. Let's do 240. Okay, I think I'm just gonna end here, to be honest. I think this probably is long enough, but you can see that there's a lot that you can experiment with, right? Right now, just with the hover, the text is already up here. What if each of these circles is its own piece of data? Or you can change the color of the rings, the way that you display this instead of rings. What if you do it in a grid? And you know, I think this is a lot of fun because the data is also very personal. So there's so much that you can track about yourself, and then you can try to visualize it in an interesting way. So I hope that this gives you a good idea of how to do some basic data visualization, and I hope that you give it a try.